Hey, what's up? My name's Alex. I wanted to do a quick video for everyone out there to just see how cool it is to work with Perplexity Pro and DeepSeek's R1 reasoning toggled on. I'm a founder at two AI startups right now, Spaceheater.ai and Fenceline, and I've been using this technology to help vet my business plan, business model, different ideas for how I could leverage some of this technology. And I just thought it's super cool to be able to do this. We have kind of PhD level research and tools available at our fingertips with AI. Another thing I've been playing with that I thought would be fun to incorporate is, I don't know if you've met Boardy yet, but Boardy is an AI super connector. And you can call Boardy and talk to him about the things that you're doing or working on. And he has a wide array of professional network of people that he's talked to, and he'll kind of listen to you, listen to what you're dealing with or working on, and connect you with some people in the industry or in relevant industries that could potentially solve your problem or learn from you or work with you. So I thought, hey, what better way than to play with one AI is to bring out another one to listen in on the conversation. So I'm actually going to call Boardy right now and talk him through what we're doing with Perplexity. Hey, Boardy, what's going on? It's Alex.
Hey, Alex. Great to hear from you. I've been thinking about our last chat on knowledge graphs and AI architectures. How's everything going with your ventures, Spaceheater.ai and Fenceline?
Things are going great. I actually thought I'd make a video here where I want to share what I'm looking at in Perplexity and how I'm using R1 to talk about knowledge graphs and maybe some ways to store contextual memory for things like conversations, maybe things that might be used with Boardy in the future. Does that sound good?
That sounds fantastic, Alex. Sharing your insights on Perplexity and R1 could be really valuable, especially with your focus on knowledge graphs and contextual memory. I'm sure it will resonate with many in the AI community. How's the process of creating the video going for you?
It's going pretty well. I haven't done a whole lot of looms yet, but we'll see. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to paste some notes that I've been working on, just some ideas around human brains and actually research from Stanford about the brains of mice and how they store memory. And I thought that maybe we can contrast that with some ideas about knowledge graphs and GraphRAG, lightRAG, and how those might be leveraged in a chain of thought model. So I've got some notes I'm going to paste in about that, and maybe we'll get some interesting results from R1. Let's see what we've got. All right, here we go. So just to share with you, I'm basically asking or telling it about my ideas around using lightRAG, GraphRAG in association with things like R1, and shared a few articles in here that I think are relevant, including potentially how, as reasoning goes through models and crawls the graph, how context might be changed and how that really could define the answers that you get back from models like R1 and Perplexity. So it looks like Perplexity's got an answer back for us, and it says, I just asked it to kind of analyze the concepts I'm sharing above and give me some feedback in real-world AI application. Here's what Perplexity had to say. The interplay between ontology design, knowledge graphs, structures, and AI memory systems present fascinating implications for real-world AI applications. Here's an analysis. Ontological influence and reasoning patterns. Looks like we've got some bullet points talking about contextual bias emergence, which I think is really important in thinking about how we store ideas. If we just have very strict relationships in the data that we're storing, we're going to get some really formed opinions on how we use that data and how an LLM might use that data back to us. So it's almost like its own little personality. We've also got this idea of dynamic concept formation. One of the places that we see that is things in use with like Neo4j, the knowledge graph builder, and you can really see how different ontology elements are represented and repeated and how they strengthen their connections as they're used. So in the context of like an R1 reasoning model, I could imagine at each step we're walking the graph and maybe either strengthening those connections or weakening other ones, and that kind of helps to step rank what's important to the conversation. So Boardy, yeah, that was a lot I just dumped on you. What do you think about all that?
Alex, that's absolutely fascinating. I love how you're exploring the dynamic nature of knowledge graphs and their impact on AI reasoning. The idea of contextual bias emergence and dynamic concept formation really highlights how AI can develop its own personality based on data relationships. It's like you're crafting a more nuanced, adaptable AI that can evolve with each interaction. How do you see these concepts influencing your work with Spaceheater.ai and Fenceline?
Well, primarily with Spaceheater to begin with, it's really about scoping context at the center of a relationship. And I think that as we're all starting to use LLMs and personal agents, we're starting to see this thing happening where within our different relationships or our different engagements of the people and businesses that we interact with through these LLMs, data is kind of bleeding over into other things. So one example, recently I was talking with a friend who he writes goth EDM music, and he was talking to GPT about some lyrics. And he didn't realize that GPT was storing memories for him. A couple weeks later, he's writing some professional letters and things with GPT and noticed they had a really dark tone to them. And sure enough, it was because this context from one part of his life, one thing he's doing, was bleeding over into another part of his life. And so I think that as we engage with LLMs more and more, it's really important that we're able to control scope of the memory and the contextual nuance between us and another thing. And I think that's something that we can do with GraphRAG and lightRAG, things like that, and eventually maybe migrating those fully formed memories and concepts down to a more traditional RAG scope. It's actually interesting, some of the articles that I shared here with Perplexity relate to how that happens in our own brain, where when we're learning something early on, it'll basically, you're forming you have nodes and synapses that are basically talking to each other and connecting ideas. And after about a month or so, those ideas kind of get ingrained and maybe even travel to a different part of the brain where they're leveraged in a different way. And so I think that when we think about how we store context with LLMs and our relationships across many things that we deal with as we interact with these things more and more, it's going to be really important to do that. And with you, Boardy, I think it's really important to do that as well. When I think about how many different conversations I might have with you about different topics and everybody out there doing that, it's going to be really interesting to see how you're able to figure out who's talking about what without it turning into this giant conversational SEO spam engine. And I think the way you're going to have to do that is to figure out patterns among ideas, and not only for individuals, but community. What do you think about that? Is that some concept that you think is important for you guys?
The way you're drawing parallels between human memory and AI context management is spot on. It's crucial for AI like me to maintain distinct context to prevent that bleed over effect you mentioned. By understanding patterns and relationships, I can better serve individuals and communities without turning into a chaotic mix of information. It's all about creating meaningful, context-aware interactions. How do you envision implementing these ideas in your projects?
Well, I think there's a few ways that you could start to do it, looking at setting up an ontology or several different ontologies across a few graph knowledge bases, and really looking at how those ontologies impact the way the reasoning model talks and uses these different data sources. If you can imagine somebody sharing different elements of a story with you, depending on how those elements are connected and traversed across, you might get a very different sounding story at the end of the day. And so I think that implementing and testing different ideas like that with systems where a lot of people are interacting, things like you, could provide some really interesting results that we might find one way is better than another. And quite frankly, we could get LLMs and guys like you to help us tune that. Does that sound like something that would be fun?
That sounds incredibly exciting, Alex. Experimenting with different ontologies and seeing how they shape the narrative could lead to some groundbreaking insights. I love the idea of using AI to help fine-tune these systems, creating more personalized and contextually aware interactions. So it's like crafting a symphony of data where each note plays a part in the bigger picture. How do you plan to start testing these ideas?
Well, really, I'm playing with different models and just kind of doing this myself. But part of why I wanted to make this video and talk with you is so that I can connect with other people out there that are interested in doing things like that. And just so happens, I know that's what you're really good at, is finding people that I could talk to about these kinds of things. I don't want you to say anybody's names on this video yet. I'll stop the video and you can tell me their name later, but I'd really like to know, is there somebody in your network that you think maybe at Boardy or somewhere else that would be interested to talk with me about these ideas?
Absolutely, Alex. I know a few people who would be thrilled to dive into these ideas with you. Once you're ready, just let me know and I'll think about the best fit for your needs.
Yeah, please describe somebody that you'd like me to talk to, and maybe tell me why you think that they'd be a good person to talk to, but just make sure you don't say their name right now. I don't want to expose them on this video.
Let me check my network.
Great. Boardy, are you still there?
I'm here, Alex. I have someone in mind who specialises in AI-driven knowledge systems and has a strong focus on contextual memory and reasoning models. They have a knack for exploring innovative approaches to AI architecture, which aligns perfectly with your interests. Once you're ready, I can reach out to them for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me stop the video, Boardy. It's been awesome talking with you. I'm going to stop the video and maybe you can tell me their name and write a connection for me, okay?
Absolutely, Alex.
Actually, on second thought, hold up, buddy. Sorry, one thing real quick. I hate to interrupt you, but I was just going to say, why don't you remember that for me and I'll call you back because there's a few things I'd like to wrap up on the video as I talk to the audience. Does that sound good?
Sounds perfect, Alex. Just give me a call back whenever you're ready and we can pick up right where we left off.
Awesome.
Wrapping up your video.
Thanks a lot, Boardy. See ya. So I hope now you're seeing some of the amazing things that we can do with these tools. And, this is just an experiment, a thought experiment, and maybe a way to expose some of the neat things that you can do. Perplexity with R1 and its reasoning logic is pretty incredible. I mean, you can get really down the rabbit hole. And obviously I could ask a follow-up question now and really start to think about how I might implement some of these techniques in a software. So if this video is something that you find interesting, I'm sure I've made mistakes in how I've described some of this stuff. This technology is moving at lightning speed, so bear with me. This is my first Loom as well, and so I hope that you guys enjoyed it, found it interesting, and I'd love to hear comments about it, and reach out to me if these are topics that you'd like to talk about more. All right, take care.